Welcome, Poggers, to another episode of the POG STATE. I'm Atlas. I am joined by Wolf and Valdez as per usual, but we have a new guest because we fired Mao. Chronicler will no longer be on any LCK-affiliated broadcast from here until forever.
About time.
Yeah, it's about time.
Deserved, yeah.
He's just generally a bit rude, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like we always have to kind of put him down on this show because he's just overstepping his bounds.
Yeah.
Extremely
For me,
out of
he's
control.
He's just too handsome, so I kind of felt really intimidated. So I'm kind of glad he's gone now.
I feel like it's his absences. Like, he wasn't here today because he was busy. I can't even remember what he said. It was something that seemed not very important, you know?
No.
He needs to get his priorities in order.
No, it's absolutely true. That's all a lie. We're wishing Mal congratulations because he just got married. In fact, Dan and I just got off a plane only a few hours ago, and we have very little sleep. So this is going to be an episode of the POG STATE, as per usual.
One of those episodes.
And I think the last one was even less hinged because if I remember, I just opened the show with a whole bunch of expletives. So thankfully, we don't need to put Ian through that again, where he just had to play piano with a beat button. Sounds absolutely perfect. But there are more congratulations as well because Wolf, the week prior, you also got hitched.
I did. Finally. It took a long time, COVID and all that stuff, but
Yep.
thank you guys all for coming. It was a great wedding.
It was great, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Valdez couldn't make it.
Valdez couldn't make it.
Valdez missed two weddings
Yeah.
because he had Valorant on exactly the wrong days.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
You know, you missed a great time. And then another great time.
I'm sure I did.
I'll be honest, it was so chaotic and there was so much going on that I basically, even though it was a very long wedding / after party, like I don't remember who was there. I'm like making fun about this. Like,
Yeah, I was
there were people that I didn't actually get to talk to at
I
all.
showed
It
up
was
later.
insane, but it was really fun.
That was definitely a lot of fun. I feel like I thought your wedding was really long, but then Dan and I went to Mao's wedding, and that thing, it was like a 3-parter, and the first part was really long, and then we took a break for an hour, and then the second part was really long, and every time there was like more and more food. It was ridiculous. There was like a hallway lined with food, and then you turned a corner, and then there was more food around the corner just in case. It was ridiculous. And it felt like there were a lot of things from a Korean wedding, which, if you don't know, Korean weddings are often a lot more condensed. Wolf's wasn't like that, much more Western wedding style. Mine was definitely more of the Korean wedding, where it's like 2 hours in and out, and boom, you're done. This, like, Indonesian wedding was like those things, but just spread out over 9 hours instead. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun, though. Definitely a lot of fun. And good to see his family and go to Indonesia. I've only been there one other time because I'm Australian, so we have to go to Bali. It's just a thing that we do. It's a rite of passage. But that was in 2006. So that was a while ago.
Were you alive
we
back
didn't-
then? Like, what?
We didn't just
Yes.
attend the wedding. We had a day where we went exploring.
We did.
We walked all the way to the National Monument, and then I was dying because it was so hot.
Yeah, Dan almost died. He almost just
yeah.
passed out in the street.
It was very hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we walked back. But now we can say that we didn't just go to the wedding. We actually did some sightseeing.
Yeah.
A singular.
We
sight.
saw a sight.
One sight.
We saw a sight. But it was like a 50-minute walk in 38-degree heat.
Yeah.
So that's enough. I'm going to go with that being enough. 100%. But Brendan, you've not, like, I know Wolf's been hanging out with his family all week, right? Because they're still here after the
Yeah,
wedding.
they just left last night. I showed them a lot of Korea, showed them all my favorite restaurants and stuff, and
Hell yeah.
how different Korea is since last time they were here in 2013. So Korea's changed a lot in the last 11 years. Had a blast with them. But I was very busy, as you can imagine, because they don't speak Korean, and I had to, get them everywhere and do all that stuff. But it was a pleasure.
Yeah, hell yeah. What are you been up to, Mr.
I met
Valdez?
Wolf's parents in 2013, actually, but I didn't meet them in 2024 because the aforementioned Valorant just ruining all of the wedding days, and I could not get those days off. And that was definitely very unfortunate, and that's basically all I've been doing. Just casting only on the weekends on the most unfortunate days. And it's been fun, but I'm happy to be back to talk about some League of Legends because that's what we're here to do.
Heck yeah, there are some video games to discuss. I was also with my family as well before I went to Indonesia, but that's neither here nor there. Had to go back and see my mum because she booked me a ticket for Return of the Jedi with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, which was dope.
Whoa.
Super duper good.
I remember when Star Wars was good.
Yeah. But like, could you imagine having like a full orchestra doing the Ewok song and like the celebration song at the end of that movie? Oh, so
I've
good.
always wanted to go to one of those because I've seen them like for stuff like Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
like with Rohan. You know, when they do the final ride. Oh my god, man!
Oh yeah.
Well, who was playing? Did they get somebody to play the Stormtrooper heads?
Yeah, no, well, I didn't actually have the Stormtrooper heads. There were a lot of Stormtroopers, though. I actually thought that maybe it would happen. Because when he does, like, the drum roll, and, like, Phil Collins would be proud. No, that didn't happen. But there were so many people, like, cosplaying there that I thought that, like, maybe they just lined them up. And the conductor would just, like, drum them.
And you weren't?
No, I wasn't.
Wow, that's kind of shameful.
I couldn't fit it in my bag. I needed the suit for the wedding. Anyway, let's do it. Let's get into MSI and talk about what we think the LCK's chances are and get ourselves a little bit ready for how this one is going to go. I think MSI is always a troubling time for LCK fans and commentators and people that like winning in a Korean way in the middle of the year. Because it's just been hard.
Should we look at the last 6 years of MVPs of MSI? So we have Night Way Gala, and then there was the year that didn't exist, 2020, and then there was Caps and Uzi, and then finally Wolf. He was the MVP in 2017. So
Congrats, Wolf.
Good job, Wolf. Before that was Faker.
No, it wasn't the Bude Chige Wolf. Come on, that's what Wolf would say.
It was T1 Wolf. Yeah, so we haven't won in a long time.
It's been
We just
yonks.
don't win that thing. We also lost in 2020 as well in MSC, where we got absolutely clapped by China, and it was not close. And Beryl took it personally, and then he went on to win Worlds. So that was good, I guess, at the end.
I
But
feel like it's one of those things where the trade is definitely worth it, but it doesn't feel good for it to have happened this many times. Plus, it hasn't always been a trade, It's not like every single time MSI hasn't been won, Korea's gone on to win Worlds. Obviously, there's a lot more World success than MSI success for Korea, but like there is times where LPL got both, which isn't ideal. Like
It hasn't happened since
2021.
2017 for us, so...
Yeah, been a hot minute.
what about LEC? They got MSI MVP in 2019. Did they
Did
go on to win?
Does anyone remember what happened?
That was such a cursed MSI. It was just the strangest time. It was the
so
strangest time.
I mean, they had a good run at Worlds, though. They didn't lift the trophy,
They did.
but...
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
finals was a bit rough.
I'm feeling a little salty today, I just...
Yeah.
But I'm like thinking back to 2019. If you remember, Brendan, like we were super amped that year because that was like the T1 super team year and stuff like that.
Isn't that the one with Teddy and...
Yeah. That was Teddy Mata
Yeah.
and Khan.
And it was like, oh, they're just going to...
Yeah, they're
just
just
gonna
going to
ha-
bop
they're
them all
just
the
gonna
way.
win.
And domestically, they did.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets that 2019 was actually like a really good SKT year. But because they just lost every international and it was just like a complete disaster outside of Korea, everyone forgets. It's just
I
not
also feel like
very...
the MSI was so
not good.
weird because like G2 beating SKT was so huge.
Yeah.
And that really should have been like, that is the talking point of MSI. Like, oh, can you believe that happened? And then we got Team Liquid beating IG. And you're like, whoa, this is like the greatest success for NA ever internationally. And then they got 3-0'd in the fastest international loss in Best of 5 ever. It's like just day by day how the storyline changed. And, I feel like it's so funny how short-lived the glory was. Oh, man, it feels bad.
It definitely does. There's been a lot of feels bads because, Carrier losing in his hometown MSI in 2022, that was devastating as well. In the weird empty there was no opposition.
Yeah, no one. The
final.
Chinese team's not on the stage. RNG is not there. And
Yeah.
everyone in the crowd is cheering for you, and no one's cheering for RNG, but they're not there, so it's very strange. Like there should be no way you should lose this, right? If you're on your peak form. That was a really interesting MSI. I felt like T1 really just couldn't get it done. Like it was weird because they were making bad decisions. They were overextending. They were overconfident. It felt like for a lot of the tournament. Then they started to get nervous when it mattered most. And I think a lot of people really thought T1 should have won that MSI.
Yeah.
But as I was watching the Rumble stage or whatever they called it, where you get to the end, I was like, I don't think they're gonna win, and they did not. But it was really sad for them, obviously, with the Busan crowd and all that.
I do think that like that's sort of a galvanizing experience for those players as well, though. Like going through that, I think probably was a positive if you then look at 2023 and the fact that they had to beat actually just every LPL team in order to be the world champions.
They did also. I feel like that roster went through a lot of galvanizing experience. They were very galvanized.
There was quite a bit of galvanizing, yes. Our boy Beryl really sorted that at the end of the year. Oh, God. And in fact, yeah, it didn't stop because MSI wasn't a great time in London either.
It just kept going.
Well and truly galvanized. Well, now they've gone through that 5-game epic LCK final and lost. So that's even further galvanizing. And perhaps that will help just bring down the elation, you know, of winning Worlds finally and Faker getting his 4th and all that cool stuff. And now we can rise back up again for MSI.
And enter the unknown?
Yeah, we can enter the unknown. We don't know. How galvanized are they? I need to stop saying galvanized. It's a fun word, though. But is that going to be the story? Is it just LPL versus LCK all over again? Or is this going to be the rise of Snackerman? Is Snackerman going to come get him?
Man. Oh, I can't.
I want a
Snacker
Snacker-Ackerman.
Snackackerman.
Snack crackers.
You know, maybe root,
Snack, crackle, and pop.
red bit and root. You know,
I mean, I'm
That
a
is
huge
actually
Root
my
fan.
favorite name.
I feel
Red
like
Bert.
I feel like in terms of names, I feel like Astral Esports and Loud, their bot lane's kind of popping off. So
I think Redbert you have to say in an Ernie accent though, otherwise it's
Redbert.
because even the red works. I don't know how it's just really good. Sorry to any Loud fans out there if you are, you know, if Redbert has publicly said that he would not like to be associated with Ernie, but I think Ernie's pretty cool.
It's kind of
and
inevitable.
He's got a fun voice. Yeah.
Name yourself Redbert.
You can say it in Elmo voice. It's fine.
What about Snuffleupagus voice? Is that a thing?
We're really getting into the weeds on this one.
Yeah, we really are. We're going far too deep.
Any Grover enjoyers?
It's pretty Grover.
How did we not talk about the Cookie Monster though? That's the
true,
really
yeah.
sad part.
I mean, if
So
we
do we
start
win
with
or do we
play-ins,
lose? Like let's get down to brass tacks.
if we start with play-ins,
we
is
start.
there any chance that Astral Esports
Oh God, we're going that deep
take a game
this
off
fast.
of T1?
No.
I mean, it is the beginning of the tournament, right? They are the head-to-head.
No.
It is a best of 3.
There was that
And-
time where Guma Carrier did get duo killed by those people that time.
Yep.
The
It
thing is,
was
I feel
a
like the problem is
PCS team, right? That
Yeah,
did it?
yeah.
the problem is
No,
I
was
feel
it?
like
yeah.
I want to say it was. Or maybe it was VCS.
T1 will definitely get down in the mud more than like Gen G
It
would.
was VCS. Yeah.
But I feel like even then, like even when the game's scrappy and things got a little bit, they're still just gonna win. You know, I feel like it comes to the middle late game, it comes to team fights, they'll just smash them. Like I don't think they'll get a game. Maybe if it was like Fnatic or FlyQuest, maybe we're talking a game. I don't think. No, sorry, Astral Esports. You know, Snackerman.
I reckon TL's got a real hot shot. You know, because you know Impact's got the inside information from a million years ago, and Core JJ is like pretty good at beating Faker when it comes to really high stakes matches. He's done that one before, and Umpty can last 92 minutes and still beat Faker. So,
Wow.
I mean,
it 94?
that's like 3 for 3. And my mate Spawn's their coach, and he's a god because he's my mate.
He is quite godly.
It is.
Yeah.
It was very interesting having a look at the teams and seeing Spawn's name in the coach column and then like Coach Kim just over there as well. I'm like, holy crap, man, my boys made it.
I think the issue for me is that not that we don't want these teams from Latin America and from Brazil to have success. It's just that I feel like over the last 2-3 years that they've had less and less of a chance, if that makes any sense. Like we oftentimes talk about the gap between like the major regions and like talking about, okay, like LPL, LCK versus LEC, LCS. I don't know why that wasn't coming to my mind. But especially
LEC-NA.
Yeah. LEC-NA.
NALEC? Oh my God, we need NALEC.
Oh, we need to
make
talk
that
to
a
Mark
thing.
about this. Like,
Yeah.
Mark, please make it happen.
But like I feel like especially at last Worlds, like even just looking at the performance of teams like GAM and stuff, it just kind of felt like, okay, well, these are the teams that sometimes got upsets in the past, but I just wasn't feeling it at all over the last couple of years. So I'm just kind of worried for them coming into yet again another international, and it's like now Estrella got to go up against T1 in the first match. Like that's just not fair.
The old format,
it's just not fair.
The old format too, with where you do like double round robin, and it's a ton of games, and they would just get, frankly, absolutely owned repeatedly by even some of the weaker teams in the tournament, like over and over and over again, and would end up going out like 0-4, 0-5, or whatever the format was, because it was 0-6, I guess it was. There's so many teams you're hitting in the round robin. And I feel like they've learned a lot, obviously, from that type of experience. That format in the old days was grueling. But, I don't know if the level of play has really gone up that much because of it, but at least they're accustomed to it. I'd like to see them try to play a little bit less standard, because they often did just play either exactly how they played domestically, which was predictable and the enemy teams had already prepared for them, or they played standard, which you're never going to beat some of these better teams, matching their meta. I like to see more curveballs coming through and some strategic depth that we really don't see from these teams all too often, because they have their own playstyle, they have their own champion pools. I mean, we cast Kled in MSI in 2022, and it's like, well, that's cool, but is it strong? Is it going to work? And like, I feel like also the regions themselves have leveled up in terms of their fan bases. We're seeing like these incredible finals, these really cool finals venues. I mean, their road shows are like kind of getting closer to where we're at right now. So I think that the region itself is growing. The level of play, because there just isn't great practice against other stronger regions, it kind of feels like it's hit its ceiling. And the fans don't care, because they're not there to be like, when they're watching LA, they're like, I'm not going to watch this because they're not as good as T1. They just want to watch their best players from the region play. They've embraced the Korean imports as well, and I think the region has really kind of grown a lot and is really fun to watch, just from an entertainment perspective. But when it comes to this play-in stage, I'm going to have to side with Valtez on this one.
I'm a big fan of watching CBLOL, by the way, even though it's at like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Hell yeah.
It's just so hard to watch, but like it's very fun. So
hard to watch. I know your sleep schedule, Brendan.
it's been better nowadays. Okay, don't throw me under the bus.
I feel like it's just so punishing as well with it being MSI, because at least when it's Worlds, like you have 4 seeds where I feel like the drop off. I mean, even though we've had like strongest performing 4 seeds recently, with like obviously DRX and even Weibo making finals, but generally the level of the 4 seeds is lower quite significantly compared to like the 1 and 2. So like you come into MSI and it's like, okay, T1 top esports are really hard opponents to beat. But if you think about like 4th place in LCK was D+, I could see D+ dropping a game. I could see a world where that happens. And that's why it's so hard in MSI specifically, because you're really dealing with less so now because there's 2 teams from the region. But even then, like I don't think there's that much to distinguish between like T1 and Gen G. They're still both very hard. So I just think you're really going up against the best of the best.
Yeah. I mean, T1 and Gen G was a 5-game final, so it's like you could have had either one. Like it's a pick your poison. It's a really rough situation.
Imagine if they were
and I mean the same thing
facing
happened
Gen
for
G.
BLG and top, right? So like even the LPL is, even though I think a lot of people are pretty much on the BLG hype train, that was still a close series between those 2 teams. So, I mean, you kind of just screwed no matter which way you go. And especially if you are, one of the lower tier teams. And just to like kind of echo your point, I feel like over time as well, the gap between LPL, LCK and everywhere else has widened. Like, if we remember back, like, Flash Wolves used to be up there. Like, that used to be, like, representation of a region that was still, really, really good. And, LMS then, now PCS is nowhere near sort of like the same ballpark as those teams. Like, I think that, obviously, like, Europe has been, on the downtrend as far as competitiveness with the East for quite some time, but early on it was a whole lot closer. And I think what that does is it also brings down all of the auxiliary regions from around there as well at the same time. Not to call you out, Orcs. I know that was your original name. But it's neither
We
here
had
nor
like
there.
what in 2021 Mad Lions like upset D+, or they were Dom 1 at the time, I think. And then we had PCS or PSG actually do really well at that MSI, and everyone's like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
it's a really competitive tournament. So I do agree with what you're saying, but it's just, it doesn't feel like that's the world we're living in now. And now with two teams from these top regions, like the fact that we have two LPL and two Korean teams, it's like, is G2 gonna make it in that top four? Like, is that a world we can live in? I want to say absolutely not, based on what we've seen.
I feel like from that point of view, it's harder to get a good tournament placing, and it's way harder to win. But I would feel like the upset potential should be more possible. If you think about it, like being twice as many teams from those regions, you could have a bad stylistic matchup in one of them, but in another it could be good. You could just have a good day against one of them. The fact it's double elim as well, like it feels like there's more opportunities. So I'm hoping, because I think it's always more interesting the more regions are able to compete with each other.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And obviously G2 have looked pretty far above their region, so
I think G2 is sort of the exception to the rule in
Yeah.
a lot of cases, just because they continue to do well.
And I've seen a lot of people like tome in the opinion. They're like, okay, there's like there's obviously a gap between like the fourth best team from LCK LPL, which a lot of people have as top esports, and like the best team from like LEC LCS. But some people have been like crossing it over a little bit. So it's like, getting a little bit muddy. Maybe we see something.
Yeah, it could be a possibility. But I think it is time for us to get into a little bit of tier listerization, guys. That's what we're going to do. And Ian is going to be able to put this one up on your screen. We've got one for reference here. And now we need to work out where to put all of the teams. There's been a lot of tier lists that have been made all over the internet. It's got to the point where I believe it was Yamato did a tier list of the tier lists. He got everyone's tier lists and put them in a tier list. It's tier listception.
I liked
over
the
here.
alphabetical ones. I think Shakarez had an alphabetical one. That was fun.
I also like the color-coded ones.
You just make a rainbow with the team.
You just like you put T1 in like how RS is like.
Oh,
red.
so it's like T1 and then PSG. That'd be pretty cool. And then Estral gets to be up there as well.
Yeah.
Fanatics in A,
Yeah, and then like
Hell yeah.
Loud's unfortunately towards the bottom end where it's green, but it is what it is.
Hey, but at least BLG would be last,
Oh man, yeah.
wouldn't they? I
Well,
think because you'd go
good.
TL first.
And I want to say something
Whoa.
before we do this tier list as well. There's been a lot of discussion about dishonest tier lists, and I can't believe a personality would put this team in this tier list, and they clearly don't watch the region as much as I do because I co-stream them, or I watch them, or I study all their VODs, or I have the data. And I'm going to be honest about the dishonesty of this tier list. Like, we do not watch all of these regions regularly.
What do you mean?
We
I
are
watch
not
Seagull
experts
every
of
night.
these
It's
regions, so
Sam.
please
Just
not be
saying.
offended. I'm going to just put the honest dishonesty out there for you guys. There's a little bit of
We've done our
guesswork
best
we're
to be
doing
a little bit more caught up, but the honest truth is that like Wolf's been with his family all week, so have I. We
At
just
least
got
we have
back
the
from a
LPL
wedding.
spy with us.
Yeah, we do have the LPL
So he
spy,
can
so
kinda
we've
break
at
that
least
down.
we've at least
Yeah.
got that one sorted. And
I think we'll definitely
we've been
struggle-
talking to Gulborg and Emily for the
Yeah.
last couple of days.
We'll probably struggle with the placement of this Generation Gaming team.
All right.
And Team 1, I think they're called. Yeah, I don't know where we'd place
Yeah.
them.
I like Generation Gaming because I think Lehens is a great shot caller. And so I'd like to put them in S. Don't tweet at me.
Please tweet
So
it.
can we agree that all four, like the two LCK teams and the two LPL teams, go in S? I think we just all agree that.
I think we've got enough slots
No, I
where
don't
we
think
can
so.
divide them into S and A, and then we can skip B and go C to F.
I think that's
Okay.
very honest.
we need to try and get a concept, because like my view is like I feel like there's some deliberation how many tiers you want to take up with like the top regions, but I think there's definitely top esports are the weakest, right? You know, I love top esports, big top esports fan, big Jacula fan, but I think from what I've seen, they look the weakest. I think T1 usually come in third, and then some people have put like BLG at the top and then Gen G next to T1, maybe speculating they're not going to perform internationally, which sometimes happens. Some people have put BLG and Gen G. I'm kind of like, for me personally, I think BLG top, Gen G T1 level, then top esports. But that's my personal, how I view it. I'm not sure how you guys view it.
I kind of, I feel like Billy has the best AD carry bot, duo of all three of the teams we're discussing. So that's the big sticking point for me. Like, I feel like Pays didn't really impress. The finals wasn't about him at all. Obviously, Karya and Guma not looking bad by any means, but not looking up to their toughest. And for me, I put Gen G and T1 like have to be in the same tier. There's not enough of a difference because Gen G won Game 5 of the finals to actually be like, well, they're one tier higher. And it was a super scrappy series. Both teams showed like their strengths and some of their weaknesses, but it was a fantastic finals. Both teams played very well overall, especially in terms of like the micro-intensive moments, some of the team fighting we saw, and some snap decision making. I just feel like for me, I can't split T1 and Gen G in terms of a tier break. Like if someone put a gun to my head and said, "Hey, which one is better?" I would pick Gen G, obviously, but like I don't think they get to be in separate tiers. Maybe BLG could be one tier above them, or maybe they're all three in the same tier and then top is one below.
Yeah,
but like, what wasn't the LPL final also 5 games?
No, it was 4.
Was it 4?
They had their lower bracket was 5 games.
So they've had a 5-game series. That's where I'm
but
getting
the finals, sadly, didn't feel like a close 4-1 at times.
Right,
it kind of felt like BLG had it. I also think my concern is, like, I think expectations. Like, I expect T1 to perform better at internationals compared to how they've done domestically, and maybe Gen G not so much. But even if you're like looking at it from perspective of Gen G overall over spring with a stronger team, I still think I am very worried for that matchup into BLG specifically, which is why I put BLG above, because I think T1, like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if T1 fare better into BLG than Gen G do, because when you look at like how BLG want to play, they play heavily around their bot lane. Shun particularly pairs up to like dive bot. We saw it last MSI when there was just chain diving bot, and I think Pays and the Hens, the times when Gen G has looked like the most stable is when they are just like negating enemy lanes. I don't think you could do that against BLG.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, there are some teams, like I think top esports, their weakness is, I think Cream and Tiana is their weak point. And I think Gen G will just blow them out of the water because they have Chovy Canyon. I don't think that works against BLG, because I don't think Chovy, even though Chovy is, to me, the best mid laner in the tournament. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that.
Yeah. Probably the best player at the tournament.
Probably the best player at the tournament, but I think Knight is good enough to match him. I don't think it's enough of a gap that Chovy's is going to blow him out of the water. I think bot lane is going to bleed. I'm really worried that they're just going to bleed out.
I think Knight's much stronger than Faker, for example. So,
But what about lane swap?
See, here's actually my take. If I was Gen G, I would be just practicing every single iteration of like every variation of lane swap right now. Every champion, theory crafting, can we play this champion lane swap? Like, you have the basics, you have the Sion, the Zac. No, let's go deeper. Let's see what we can bring the Udi out. Let's see what we can do. Every variation, because I don't think there's a single bot lane out of the other teams in the LCK and LPL that you actually want to lane against. Because we know that like Guma Carrier, like when T1 have matchup well into them is when they've played like these aggressive lanes into them. Jacula and Mako are super aggressive, right?
Oh, yeah.
And as much as I think they'll be fine in that team matchup, I still think you'd benefit from avoiding that lane matchup. And then, I've said it all about Elkanon, so like I would just lane swap every single game. Just like, that could be Gen G's thing. And the thing is, that like Gen G are good at playing the map, and if they get to the later stages and they have a strong team fight, they're golden.
I've noticed Chovy is playing a lot of tanks in the top lane in solo queue right now. They're playing Nautilus. A lot of people are playing Galio top right now. I could see Chovy, in a lane swap scenario.
Chovy's had a pretty good Galio game, I seem to remember. There was that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big taunt.
Yeah,
pretty big one.
Quite large. Yeah.
I think Gen G can figure lane swaps out really well, obviously, and like I don't think they'll be surprised by them. I don't think they'll be caught off guard by them, and I think they can utilize them quite well because they have Chovy and Keen who have massive champion pools, and obviously it's usually Keen who would be swapping bottom and playing something like a Sion, as we've seen in the past. But I think that is definitely a strategy they should attempt to employ. But I just think ultimately Pays and Lehens can't stand up to Elk. Like, Elk is the guy. And Pays was the guy. He's not the guy right now. He hasn't been the guy for a while, and I think we'll have to be honest about it.
Also,
Well, I
let's
think
remember...
Doran was actually the guy, and then Pays was the guy by accident because he got more
Yeah,
votes.
there's also
Oh,
that.
no,
if you guys
not
remember.
again. Oh, God. But yeah, remember that this is going on in Chengdu, China. All the teams have to go there.
That's true.
And I was there recently, actually, in December for another game, Crossfire. And the food is very different to Korean food. It is very spicy. It's very good, though.
But we
it's
do
very
know
good
that
food.
T1 always just goes to the hot pot place because it's their favorite.
Yeah,
And
they have a lot of
Chengdu
hot pot
is-
as well.
That is like the kingdom of hot pot.
It is.
So
So
maybe it's good for
hopefully-
them.
But the point really is that, it's kind of home territory for the Chinese
Absolutely, yeah.
teams. And already Genji and T1 have struggled at MSIs in terms of international performance. So for me, BLG absolutely is on a tier of their own. Like, I would put BLG and S, and then like maybe T1 ahead of Genji just because it's an international. Although I do feel like Genji, like you guys were saying, is going to be pretty good at like figuring out lane swaps. And Chovy is fantastic in the solo lane playing whatever. And also Keen is great. He's got a champion Ocean. He's
think-
great at like
yeah.
side laning, whatever. So I do think that Genji should be able to handle it, especially if they're doing like weird lane swaps and they really bring in some cool tech. But again, in internationals, it's kind of hard to say. Like, I feel like looking in the frame of MSI, we have to put like BLG on a different tier. If this was just like on paper in terms of like who dominated more and like who seems like the better team just on paper, maybe I'd put like BLG and Genji together. But for me, BLG is on a tier of their own just because of all these other factors. Like, it's in China, it's MSI, it's a lot of pressure.
So
stuff like
Billy
that.
gets the S tier, top tier.
Yeah, and then we
T1
go-
and Genji get the suitcase full of Shin Ramyun tier.
And hot pot when they run out. Guarantee that actually.
I mean, that is
No, I mean,
definitely
is how,
happening,
that is
yeah.
often how Korean pro gamers travel, just
Yep.
to make sure that they have food that they can eat, that they're comfortable with. They don't eat ramyun every day, but like,
In
if they're
fact,
like, "Oh, I'm feeling a
Nongshim's
little sick,"
sending their team. In fact, they're sending their team so they can just go and dole out the ramen to everyone because, there's like a Korean player at least on like most of the other teams there. They'll make some bank. So you got Dundun just like walking around knocking on doors.
So do we put top below in B?
No, I
Or do
think
we
you
keep
just put
them
him at
in
the
A?
end of A.
I'm personally, I'm fine with making a distinction and putting them in B. And I love top esports, but I think I'm okay with that. And then the question is, would you have like G2 encroaching on B? I know that's jumping ahead, but I'm like, it's
Well,
always.
I'm trying to figure out how we can fit everyone in.
I do
Well-
agree, though, that I think Top Esports will lose to T1 and Genji.
Yeah.
I think they are a weaker team. Although they did, like, look okay in the finals, but
I
don't-
think I'm gonna be honest here, right? I think we use as much space as possible for the teams we're knowledgeable on.
So 4 tiers, 4 teams. Top
then-
Esports and C tier.
and then we have.
Do we really want to put any
the
team in
rest,
F,
yeah.
though?
No, that's very
We'll
mean.
get there, and we'll see.
Maybe. F for fun team that we like to watch, but maybe you won't do so well.
All right, so I think
Fan favorite.
I'm okay
S
with doing
Billy
the
A Genji T1, and then B top.
Okay.
Do we all feel good about that?
Yeah.
I think so, because I don't think. Yeah,
I don't know whether in retrospect we'll feel good about it when we're trying to put someone in like Z tier later on.
We can always reshuffle it
yeah.
and just
Yeah.
make it really annoying for the editor.
Yeah, we can. Well, it's not going to be annoying because it'll just be we'll figure it out and then you'll know where to put things in. But it will be difficult to do. We might need a few different iterations. It's a problem for the future. But that's
so the
okay.
next best team is G2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty...
I think we all universally agree
Yeah.
on that.
And so I guess is it G2 and B after top?
I'd say
Because
no.
the way a tier list can
There's
work,
no way.
there are like
If you're taking
there are
a game
different
off
ways
of
that
Billy
you can
Big
do it.
Gaming, you're
Because
not
are we saying
same
that
tier as
every
G2.
team that's in S is of equivalent level? And every team in A is that's not how it works,
No,
right? It's
it's
still
like
like the
whoever's
top
first.
of A
Yeah.
is still going to be better than the others. And so therefore, I think that you can have a bit of wiggle.
One thing we do, I think, before we go on that, we should discuss is: are we ordering A? Because if we're ordering it, then like who
Yeah,
are
it's
we
already
putting?
ordered. It's Genji T1.
Genji then T1. We're
Yeah.
going with that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a 51-49 for
Yeah,
me. but
it
like,
is.
Yeah.
Zeus is kind of going off the rails too. It's like playing a lot of weird stuff and playing range tops. Like
Disgusting.
I don't know. I don't know if he's really going to be ready for the meta. Whereas I feel like Keen will be a bit more ready and has already proven that he can carry a game 5 like under a lot of pressure. So for me, I think Genji, their solo laners are just better, and I would just put them ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
I also
Down with it.
trust Canyon. The thing that the big difference in Genji this year compared to Genji last year is the Peanut to Canyon trade. Because Peanut is the domestic god and then goes overseas and it's not as good. And it's been that way for quite a few years now. And I think that with Canyon and like, you know, being involved in one of the greatest best of fives of all time last year, like the Kane game and stuff like this, like I feel like Canyon comes alive in internationals. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do.
He's always got new picks up his sleeve for every
Yeah,
MSI.
man.
Like more than Worlds, he's always showing up with crazy picks in
He's
MSI.
like a Dragon Ball Z villain, dude. He's like he just keeps going into different forms and stuff like that. Like it's like absorbing things and just getting better and
I
better.
feel like also Genji, the other swap that I think really helped them was swapping Chovy from last year to Chovy for this year.
Yeah.
Huge upgrade.
it's kind of
been pretty
massive.
big.
Yeah, he was good last year, but this year,
He's
man.
been getting some big firmware updates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Joey 2.0.
Definitely a great investment.
So I guess
you
we
know,
can
I
put
love that.
Billy and
It's
then like
Cyberpunk.
Genji T1 top, probably in A.
Wait, are we
we've been moving top of the A
retroing?
already.
Well, like you were
if
saying,
we
you know,
can
we
do
could
that,
like
yeah, yeah.
order it and say, okay, well, Genji and T1 are better than top. Maybe there's like a small gap in A.
Do we put like top like in the middle of A?
yeah, A
Yeah,
minus?
just like move it over a bit. I actually like that because then we were only taking up 2.
Because at the end of the
and then
day,
we got
I
some
don't
more
think
room.
that G2 is on the same page as top at all. Like,
Yeah, I
I
guess
think
it
they
comes
should be a
down to-
tier below.
I guess
so
it comes down to how do you think the gap between top esports and G2 is bigger, or the gap between top esports and T1 Genji is bigger? And I
Top
think
G2.
Yeah,
I think
top
G2.
G2,
Yeah,
100%.
So I think-
agree.
I actually kind of think that like those 4 teams are like in the roof, and now we can have a conversation that starts from
Like a
about
new
here.
tier list.
And by the way, the ceiling is relatively high. I don't know whether you got the perspective, but they're like up there in the rafters. And now we're having a conversation down here
and now G2
for
are an
everything
S,
else.
And then
Yeah.
Well, I think that also in the conversation. I don't know how much everyone has watched LEC, but even just historically, I feel
Enough.
like G2's always been a bit of like that oddball. I mean, I'm not going to go back to like 2019 because that was a different era of G2, different era of League of Legends. But even so, it still feels like they're comfortably ahead of the region
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
It does feel like there's, you know, it's kind of, you have this general overview
For sure.
of not even just the LEC, but like the LEC and the LCS. And then it's like G2 always like, no, wait, are they like just a bit above, or they're like here? I feel like it's always
They
an interesting
perform
one.
well internationally. Like,
Yeah.
they always do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a project with a lot of these players having a ton of international experience now as well, where they
And also, they've just had an amazing mentality as a team for so long, as far as like being able to just get back on the horse.
And also, I know this as a top esports fan. They have had some notorious all-time chokes.
I know that as well as a T1 fan
You know,
and a Genji fan.
I've seen
Oh,
Jackie Love
God.
choke internationally and domestically.
one of a kind.
Yeah.
So I
He's
think
here now.
I think G2 definitely seems to be the best non-Asian, like non-LPL LCK team. And then you start thinking about who is close to them, and in the past you'd be like, well, what about that PSG talent? How's that?
Yeah.
But they don't look the same as they have over the last 3
yeah, I
years.
don't think
I mean, I'm ready.
I'd almost put
I'm ready
Fnatic
to
above
start
them.
start thinking about putting PSG in at least like the TL FlyQuest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I put him there because
Really?
I've been a Betty fan for ages, and Wacko.
kind of
I
on that
wanted to
page.
call him Wacko forever, and so I'm kind of glad that there's no Wacko anymore because I have to catch myself. But Betty's so easy; it's fantastic, and he's been around forever. It's fun to watch on the Flash Rules. Went over to RNG, and like the guy, he's been like a big name, and so now you got like the Betty Maple combo, which sounds like
Betty Woody,
someone that's gonna make pancakes. You know?
yeah,
Betty Maple. Oh, it's
Betty
actually-
Crocker,
Yeah,
maple
yeah.
syrup, yeah.
Yeah. There's a vibe. There's a vibe there. So I'm feeling it.
Bisquick.
So is that why you're putting them with FlyQuest?
Absolutely, yes. It's all pancake theory. I went
Yeah,
pancake theory on it.
Just one flat plane,
Also, PSG Talon sent me a hat that one time.
Oh, okay. No, that,
And that was pretty
I was sold.
I do feel like, though, G2 are weirdly in their own tier, I think it goes top esports in A-, and then it goes like G2 and B, and then like the next set of teams are in C.
B for boy. I
I
don't know
think
how
when we
good
get
you
to
are.
C, when we get to C, we actually do like a really serious conversation about like who's first in C, who's second in C, who's third in C, because that's when it gets like a little bit more interesting. Because I do think PSG for me and GAM as well with some of the swaps of the kind of emergency roster changes.
Oh yeah.
Make it a little bit tougher to really suss out the strength of those two teams. And historically, a lot of the time, NA teams, and I hate to say it like this, but like they could lose to anyone. You know what I mean? Like they might upset one time, and there's the moment where you go, oh wow, yeah, that was a great game.
I think it's pretty accurate though.
Yeah, I can feel that.
I mean, teams like Cloud9, I feel like in the past would really sometimes show up at an international event for that one game, and they're really good, and everyone's like, oh, like not near airport, and then.
Then
the
you
rest
have
of
the
then you go back
0-6
to
year.
reality. But
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes even when these other regions are weaker, like they drop games against like LLA, and and you're like, oh, I don't know how that happened, but I want to say that I think right now I feel like pretty good about North America's chances of actually staying competitive with PSG and GAM, just because PSG has, I feel like, declined over the last few years, even
And
with
GAM
some
kind of
changes.
disappointed me last year as well.
I mean, also
GAM
I think
really
GAM's
disappointed.
region did some
I
things
think-
this year.
I
so
think the
maybe we
VCS
just
as a
put
general
that
is
one-
very
yeah.
hard to judge.
Yeah.
I do kind of agree.
Let's
your
just
point,
put,
though.
let's
Let's
just
put
do
them
a
in
GAM
F.
in F and move on, so we don't get in trouble. Let's do that.
I feel like with the NA teams, I almost feel I'm not a big watcher of the LCS. I'm not like a huge NA fan or anything, but I feel myself getting frustrated because
I watch a
this-
lot of LCS. I feel like LCS just happens at like times where I'm about to go to bed,
and then you
and
just
so it's
tune
my
in.
lullaby. It's my beautiful LCS lullaby.
But it's like last MSI, I remember it was like, I think it was Cloud9 against BLG. And legitimately, it actually looked like Cloud9 could have won games in that series. And then they got 3-0. And it was like, it felt very frustrating because it was like, it felt like they actually could have won games. And it would have been so huge. And then they just didn't. And I feel like as an NA fan, like, I know people like to kind of dump on the region a lot. But there's definitely times I feel like, especially recently, because I feel like EU, there was obviously the previous time where I felt like EU was comfortably ahead of NA. It feels like the gap is closed, and I keep thinking when we get this tournament where like NA outperforms EU, we're going to see it, and then it doesn't really come, and I don't count Worlds because, I mean, Energy's run was... Don't even get me started. But like,
Huge. They went so far.
But
They went so deep.
I just feel like, I'm always wondering, are we going to see the day where like NA outperforms EU? I think it's hard at MSI, especially when G2, I think, are hard to beat.
I think like,
But, like,
NA
against
are
Fnatic-
not as good as G2, but I think NA is very on par with EU. Does that make sense? Like I think that because G2 is just so far ahead of their region, so it's.
But I think also, like now that I'm thinking about this more, because we kind of were talking mostly about PSG and talking about GAM. Like I think Fnatic is significantly, this roster of Fnatic is significantly ahead of NA. Or the Noah June angle and how good they've been, and Humanoid has obviously some of his moments where we're like, Humanoid's always been a very
International
polarizing
Humanoid's actually kind of interesting as well.
They have Resork as well, and I think he's pretty good.
Razor
Yeah,
K?
but I think you're forgetting about International Umpty, so,
Ooh,
you
my
need to
God.
bear that in mind.
Yeah, that's a
I
really good
kind of
point.
feel like I want to put Fnatic in the first part of this. We're on B, right?
C.
C, okay. Fnatic at the beginning of C, and then I'm like, okay, it's Team Liquid, FlyQuest, and then probably PSG, and then GAM. It's kind of where I'm feeling. But GAM might not actually be in C, but
I would put
it's a big question mark. Like
I might
GAM
put
needs some
Loud-
question mark tier.
I'm a loud believer.
I might, yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm putting most teams ahead of.
I feel like
GAM.
CBLOL, this might be their tournament to break
Oh,
out of D and make it
baby.
into C. You know, like it's so weird to talk about it, but I feel like
You're the avid CB long watcher,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
6
can
a.m.
credibly say.
You would
No.
actually know.
I mean, they have Loud does have the ex-Loose Sandbox player Root, the bottom laner.
yeah, and Croco.
And he's been
as
there
well.
for ages now as
Wait,
well. I
is it
feel like
Croc?
he's like
It's Croc.
he probably speaks fluent
Croco.
Portuguese. You know, just like he's ready. He's acclimatized.
They also have Stardust, who was the ex-T1 coach. You know, he's been around. He was a StarCraft player and StarCraft
Yeah.
coach for a while. So I'm not saying like, a lot of people have mixed feelings about Stardust as a coach. Obviously, it's been a controversial issue over the years. But all I'm saying is at least they have a Korean coach to like rein these players in and like help them communicate and help them improve the rest of the team. Maybe like, hey, can you explain to Tinones like how this needs to be played out and stuff? So.
Although Tino's like he's older than any other player in all of League of Legends.
That's why Stardust has to like, be like, Root, can you talk to him, man?
Yeah,
I just think it's funny, just Wolf being like, mixed feelings about an XT1 coach. I'm like, is there any who are unblemished at this point? Koma even came back and he got trucked, like.
Oh god, no one's safe.
No one.
Literally no one's safe.
That's true. Actually, the infrastructure in Brazil is really good around League of Legends. I think that it's.
But
been a lot of
there
growth.
might be a time where, like, they start to eclipse, just because they're still investing a fair bit as far as like getting better talent and things like that.
And you know what? I guarantee there will be some Brazilian fans who will travel all the way to central China.
I imagine like they're like practicing their gyos, like the Brazilian, like the Loud fans, like
Loud
that's
gyro.
happening. Hell yeah, it'll be incredible. No, that's the fandom for Brazil is absolutely insane. So I would agree. Actually, I'm kind of down for putting Loud a little bit further up because I also feel like Brazil are often pretty underrated coming into almost any tournament because they go off to Brazil and then like start cooking again, and then we only see them when they come out for every international. So and it's so hard to judge what any of these regions actually look like, right? When
Yeah.
they're not actually competing against other ones.
I also feel like two of our major regions, LCS and LEC, over the years have slowly moved towards like, CBLOL and LLA direction more so than towards like LCK, LPL direction in terms of, you talked about like C9 getting some like opportunities and stuff and like still getting 3-0'd. I feel like sometimes any team that's here at MSI, you could like win an early game and like have a splash and like get a nice gank or whatever. But at the end of the day, in terms of consistency, like when I watch LEC and LCS, it's just like, honestly, it's just like a cluster. Like everybody's just, you'll get a lead and then they'll just throw it and then they'll make a mistake and they'll be over aggressive. And it's like,
You can see it.
it's so hard to watch because when we watch LCK, obviously everybody is like super tight. Like all the Korean teams are known for just being almost boring because they don't make mistakes, right? But then when you watch these other regions, it's like they try to emulate LPL, I guess, and they're just trying to be like over aggressive, trying to make plays, trying to like be the carry, and it just doesn't work. And it's like teams will be in the lead and then they'll lose it and then they'll win, and it's like, what happened
You
there?
can see in the comms, like
It's
when
a
I
totally
watch
different game.
when I watch some of the LEC comms, like the ones they show on air and stuff, like they always, say stuff like, I think we can Baron, and we were go. They're very snap decision making that I feel like we didn't always see from LEC, and especially NA, where there's a lot of like uncertainty, and then, oh no, it's too late, like they're on Baron, and then a lot of mistakes happen. I think it's been a lot faster, the decision making, but it hasn't always been the correct decision.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of really heavy commitments to trying to look for a pick or look for a fight or a risky Baron.
And it's just
the
the
Baron
wrong
throws
call.
like happen all the time. And then I look at LEC, I look at the top of the scoreboard, and I'm like, it's 21 kills to 18 kills, and it's like 32 minutes. I'm like, what is going on in this
Yeah,
region?
that's what I mean. It does feel like they're kind of in like this, this stage of flux, right? Where they're trying to like change the way they play the game. They're trying to be faster, more decisive, but they're not quite making the right decisions yet. And it kind of just makes it all over the place and not very clean, right? So that's kind of what I mean when when I'm talking about this.
Yeah, I've definitely felt
So-
that as well, especially watching LEC. I think the crispness, like the plays where you go, oh, that was smart, that was so clean. Like I feel like we used to see that more in the LEC, and now it's more like just don't miss your chance. And then, well, I took my chance and I failed, and it gets really messy. And I'm not sure why that is. We have a lot more imports in the LEC, it feels like, as of late, and so perhaps the communication gets a little bit muddied in some of that. But
Are we just gonna have an epic C tier?
Yeah.
Sorry to completely derail.
Yeah.
But is it going to be just 5 teams in C?
I don't know about
Yeah.
that. We can probably split them up a bit.
I kind of don't want to. I'm kind of okay with them being pretty close because it's Fnatic, TL, FlyQuest, PSG, and Loud. And
I think
I'm
you
not
can
confident
kick
in who I'd
FlyQuest.
move down.
I think you could put FlyQuest in D.
Would Chris be okay with that? Have you spoken to Papa about this?
Yes. In fact, he gave me direct permission on this
Oh.
episode.
Well, actually, if
Okay.
you
He said,
look,
put us in D tier.
if you look, D is green on this little bit of paper we have.
Oh,
And FlyQuest is
true.
Kind of more of an F color, though.
So maybe we should
Oh,
move...
whoa.
For FlyQuest?
Just the color. Yeah, F for
FlyQuest and it's
it
green?
makes sense.
Does that
No,
mean we need to
X.
put FlyQuest and Loud both down? Because
No,
the
I-
green logo.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say that Loud is a tier above FlyQuest. I feel like I could put them ahead of FlyQuest, but to make that
I'm
statement,
putting them
Maybe
at
we
the...
could
They're
put
at the
we could put
end.
Loud
They're
in
at the end
D.
of C.
Wait,
so
I
they'd
thought
have
Loud,
to be
I
in
thought
D.
Loud was in B tier. What's going on?
No.
So we're thinking Fly and Loud then in D tier.
I'd say like Fnatic, TL. I don't even want to put
What? We could just put
PSG or GAM in
Fnatic
this tier.
TL, and then we could go D tier for like
I
FlyQuest Loud, and then F tier can be the teams we don't really know about. Like
I mean, we just take the F out, honestly, or we
Wait,
could
no,
turn
I
it
feel
into
like
a
they need
question
a
mark and put
space.
GAM into it because we just don't know. But
yeah, it's not like again. I think GAM is just so hard to read because a lot of stuff happened in that region.
Things did happen in the region, so we're gonna put GAM here. We might even put a big old question mark next to it, but it's in the F tier, right? That's where we're putting GAM. Sorry, GAM. And Estral, I think, is, even though Jose Duerto does have the greatest name of all time, I don't know, and Snacker Man.
Snacker Man.
Maybe actually no.
put
Okay,
them in S
okay.
tier,
Cancel
actually.
F tier. We're just calling it Snacker Man tier, okay? And then we can GAM can hang out in Snacker Man tier. I don't want to do it. I
Should
just
make a new tier in between D and F.
Yeah.
Snacker Man.
yeah. I've heard good things about Cody as well. Actually, I don't know whether everything is in the context of what they can do in their own region, though. This is the thing, and we haven't seen much of.
sometimes we've seen
success.
Latin America and Brazil actually have good and exciting games against each other, but they had 2 Korean imports. They have Robo and Tinones who have a ton of international experience. I feel like I'm 100% sure Loud is above Estral here, and I look at Estral and I'm just not that familiar with these players, what they've done. It's literally that I wasn't familiar with your game meme,
Yeah.
and someone might tweet that at me after they end up getting an upset or something.
Sure.
But I'm not
I'm
familiar
down
with their
with that,
game.
though.
I'm not familiar with their game. They're an unknown quantity for me, just like GAM with this broken roster. And I think PSG I put above both Estral and GAM because they're a mostly known quantity, even though we think they've declined quite significantly.
Yeah.
I don't
that's
think quite
fair.
significantly though.
I feel quite significantly, but
Yeah.
I think GAM.
They've got. I feel like
declined.
PSG have some big names in it. Like we've seen a lot of them in the LPL, but I feel like they were on the downward trajectory when they left,
yeah.
and I don't think they've had a rebound so much. I mean, domestically for PSG, they're doing, but I don't think they're on the level of the highest level we've seen them in.
When was Betty's highest high? Was it Flash Wolves in 2017 or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that?
And then he was on. Was he on
RNG.
Anyone's Legend? I think.
Yeah, he was on that too. as well.
with Chocho. That was a pretty fun roster, but I don't think he was doing particularly
who
well.
do you guys remember? I'll put
Yeah.
everybody on the spot.
So
Do you guys remember who
Jovi.
PSG beat in the finals?
It was
No.
some bank someone.
Was it SoftBank? Was it
SoftBank.
the SoftBank team?
Yeah.
So for me, okay, I figured it was an LJL team, and I was like, I
And
think
they-
it might have been SoftBank.
And they 3-0'd them in very.
So in my experience with PSG, their best years are when they get into the tournament by beating hard teams and it's competitive. But when they actually just crush the region, that's when they look bad because the
Yeah.
region is bad. And
hey,
the
but they
practice is
crushed a
bad.
different region.
Well, yeah, but it's the
So-
LJL, which hasn't been as competitive as PCS historically. So that's kind of another thing that I'm thinking about taking into account here is how much.
I wouldn't
growth
be
could
surprised
there really
if they
be?
got some great scrim practice with Dom 1 challengers.
Dun dun dun.
I do feel like though, some of our challenger teams from LCK would.
Oh no,
scrim
absolutely.
with,
Oh, definitely. They definitely do.
yeah,
They
yeah.
definitely do.
Yeah, that region.
I mean, there's a lot of the players from Challenger that are now just in the LGL.
True.
You know, like the legend Forrest.
The best one.
Who, unfortunately, didn't quite make it to MSI this year, which we're all very sad about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very sad.
At least we get Snacker Man, though,
Yeah.
even if we don't get the Forest.
So what is the...
So, do you want me to tell you what the current, what it stands looks like?
Okay, hit us with it.
Yeah. So, in S tier, we have BLG.
Wait, did we agree to that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, go on.
It's going to take a while, isn't it? And then in A tier, we have Genji T1 and Top.
In that order.
And top.
And Top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then B is just G2 on an island.
Mm-hmm.
We have a nebulous amount of distance between A and between C.
A
not
large
quite sure.
nebulous distance.
Yes. And then you've got Fnatic, TL. I still have PSG in C tier, but that's debatable. Do we just go Fnatic, TL in C tier?
Yeah, I don't
Perhaps.
really feel like there's
Maybe.
any other team that can challenge those two,
Yeah.
to be honest. I don't know. Like, even Loud, I don't think...
Guys, I just got to remind you
I mean,
that
for-
TL have umpty.
No, I know. There's no debate.
What did I say?
They have
Loud would be
the
only
oldest
teams.
player in the tournament.
general.
FlyQuest and Loud, I think, are the only teams that maybe could be there. I don't know about PSG. I feel like no, probably
May-
not.
Am I
Maybe we
the
just
only
have-
one that's got this like
Yes.
weird soft spot for PSG?
You talked about
It's
how
the
it was a
hat.
pancake.
You're living in the
Oh,
past,
right.
old man.
Yeah, it's the pancakes and the
Look,
hat.
I think
The pancake
maybe,
theory,
maybe
yeah.
we put TL, Fnatic TL in C,
Got
and
it.
then we put like FlyQuest, Loud,
PSG?
PSG in D.
And then Snackerman tier is
Yeah.
Estral, and then Gam with a lot of question marks around Gam because
Yeah.
we just don't know.
Guys, I think we got it.
I think,
I think
that's
we've
it, right?
nailed it.
I think it's perfect.
I'm going to be honest with you guys and everyone at home. When we first got this and we were like, all right, we have to put all these teams into a tier, I was like, will we be able to do this?
that was the real challenge today.
I mean, not just
fitting
because we're not
everybody
super
in.
familiar with all these regions, but also because like we have 4 different people's opinions. I was like, are we going to actually just talk about this for 7 hours and like we need NASA to help out? Like,
You know, I was really worried
Ask the
when
aliens.
Max was big on PSG that would just be here for like another 2 hours, just like, look, we're like discussing all the points. He's like,
I'm not that married
and yet
to the
they
idea,
gave
you know.
me a hat, you know? Like, I feel like
Maple syrup.
I mean, that did actually happen,
could we
Dan.
have
Maybe we have been
tier
here.
for
Yeah, I
hat
have a
tier, you
hat
know?
too.
Like,
I mean, I always
Snackerman
mention the PSG
tier.
talent staff have been incredibly nice to me across
have
multiple
actually, yeah.
esports. Great org, fantastic to talk with those guys.
That's fair, we
But
bumped
I'm
them
not
up.
putting it in the tier list. I'm just saying, I will give them a shout out because they are fantastic people.
And look, maybe they'll perform better as underdogs from our tier list. And now I guess we should talk about where our tier list would fit into the tier list. And I probably give
on
it a
top.
strong E.
Strong E.
Strong E.
For excited.
E for
Whoa.
exceeds
I
expectations.
feel
For
like
elephant.
we would definitely be in Snackerman tier.
Yeah, I think Sacramento tier for sure.
Hell yeah. That's even better. I didn't know that we deserved
that's
it.
what we're aiming
How do our IDs as casters,
So-
rate against other regions' IDs?
Also, how would you guys do you guys think
We all
which
lose to
one-
Dagda, though.
If we made
That's
a prediction, which person is going to do content about this tier list first? Will it be Yamato Cannon? Will it be I Will Dominate? Will it be Cage Roll?
No, I mean,
What about double lift?
Double.
I kind of
I'd
want
say
to like.
Yamato
Wow, I
Cannon.
can't believe
I
these
think
guys
Yamato
are playing up.
If
the
someone's going to
fans.
talk about my tier list, I would like it to be Yamato because I
think it's
like
gonna be
hearing
Yamato.
him talk.
Yeah.
And I feel like he has done a lot more like overarching content recently. Whereas I feel like the others, like to, stick to their niche and like talk about what they think about the stuff.
I feel
Whereas
like-
Yamato's good at compiling information.
Yeah.
Sure.
We could have gotten I Will Dominate to do it first if we put the 2 Korean teams above the 2
Yeah,
LPL
that's
teams.
true.
But
True.
because that didn't happen, there's not enough drama. So honestly, it's not worth it for him.
We should have actually just put T1 in SSS plus tier. And then started from Snackerman tier after that. And then kept
Maybe
going.
we get a video.
Yeah, we might get a video.
Otherwise, it's just not worth it.
I'm
I
still
feel like-
going to go with we're probably a
I
Snackerman
feel like
tier.
our tier list is not particularly controversial.
Well, I actually think that's
We wouldn't get a
kind
lot
of
of
how
hits.
MSI looks this season. And I'm actually really happy about that because I think when you come into a tournament and things look cut and dry, that's when the upsets actually happen. Because there's a lot of assumptions that are made beforehand, and everyone just tends to agree, and so you don't get a lot of those counter arguments seeping in. Outside of me talking about pancakes, but I just don't think that's pancakes and hats. So I don't think that's really going to make PSG really seem like they might be a dark horse or anything like that. But I think when it is like relatively agreed upon as to where teams are, then that's when things go awry.
That's when Top Esports just completely bomb the tournament and just like get knocked out by Loud.
TL. I mean, Umpty could definitely he could take some names this tournament, I swear.
You know, I will say, Tien is totally capable of being both. He could totally just be the worst jungler at the tournament. He could just.
But he's done that before and he won.
I know. It's an intangible. It's like this. You know, I feel like whenever you're analyzing, you try and take into account things like, okay, you can factor in this. You can look at this player is pretty consistent. This form is going to be in. And there's just like that extra element. This is why you can never fully predict things, because there's just the Tian factor. Like, is he gonna just have a complete stinker? Maybe. You know, is he just gonna lose the tournament for his team potentially? You know, is Jackie Love?
I mean, they have an RNG top laner. Is he going to be 3? Is he going to be 6? Is he going to be 9?
Yeah, it's
a lot of RNG.
Who knows? Which I think is why it's still so exciting, because whenever we get into tournaments,
I guess.
And it just. Yeah, I really feel like it's hard to nail down. I feel like last MSI, I was a lot more because I put BLG on top here, but I feel like JDG last MSI, especially the meta that came in, suited them so well. I think very quickly it was kind of so clear that they were just going to win.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's going to be as clear cut this time around. I hope it isn't.
It doesn't seem like it's one of those old. And I guess we haven't really experienced what the meta's truly going to look like and things like that. Like, is every team going to be lane swapping every single game? In which case, like, I would 100% be putting Genji in S tier, and I would be moving BLG down. Like,
and I would
guaranteed.
be moving T1. Can you imagine Zeus just pin me like 60 CS at like 20 minutes? Man, Jesus.
We're empowering the lane that struggled the most this season in order to make their best player not be as good. Like, oh yikes, it's not great. But I think that Genji with lane swaps gets so much better. I think that that's like being able to dodge and like get to mid to late is like just so good for that team. So
and that's the thing, because they changed Void Grubs. And there's debate on this, because I know from what I heard is the intention to balance team, because they moved Void Grubs, they buffed them, the dot you get from them, you also get 1 Void Grub spawning at 4 instead of 5.
Yep.
And they moved it a minute later. And the intent of them doing that was to try and punish lane swaps. Like they've said openly, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so like you can't just like trade objectives on the other side of the map. You can't get as much benefit from being top. You know, a team could take Dragon, then swap to top and get the Void Grubs, and it'd be more beneficial because of that. So I know that the balance team intent was to make lane swaps less viable, but I think until you see it come out in pro play, because we know countless times, you know, a balance change has come in with the hope of stopping a strategy, and it hasn't done it, because teams are very persistent.
And there's a lot of leaks that I've seen of like teams that are playing on the patch right now that haven't been doing it. There hasn't been as much as I was expecting to see, but I think it's going to vary team to team.
I think it'll be a very niche strategy, as it was in our finals and as it was in the LEC playoffs, where you see it every now and then, but it's not going to be the prevailing game to game. Like every game is a land swap. I think maybe like 1 out of 10 games is a land swap. That's kind of how I feel it'll probably go. But again, that time will tell, because we just don't know yet.
I think as well that's what can be cool as a strategy in general, because it could just be. It's effective enough that you can't fully index into like lane stompers. Like if you're going like Varus Ashe, you deserve to get lane stomped on. Like I'm being real.
Yeah.
But if you're not committing to those like I'm gonna completely crush you in lane matchups, the game might just play out normally. You know, like if we see like Jinx or Aphelios traded off, right? They'll just play it normally. But if teams are like, you know, I think T1 are especially a team I could see leaning into some of those bot lanes. Maybe teams like, okay, this is why we've prepped the lane swap for this specifically. But I think, as you said, like every game, maybe not so much, but who knows, really.
I think it's actually cool to have it as a niche strategy. If it's the winning strategy, that's when lane swaps become very boring, as we've learned about
it's just
years
every
ago.
game just trading.
Yeah.
And then the only time that was
it's
ever
like a
fun,
no rush 20. It's like we're actually just playing StarCraft no rush 20, and you sit in base and you build up your armory. And
We
you
got to
get
make
your
turret
upgrades.
plates. Each turret plate has 5 plates within it,
Oh boy.
Oh wow.
and only in the bottom lane.
This sounds like a royal dinner setting,
They
you
just
know,
need
where
to
it's the
make it-
plates piled on top of the plates, you know.
Instead of fortification, right? If you send 2 people to hit a top lane tower, the tower doesn't hit the minute; it just hits them. You know, it just gets. It's just like nope, none of that. Just
Yeah,
like
if there's more than one person, automatic turret aggro.
yeah, immediately.
That's actually kind of clever. I don't know.
Top laners would really enjoy that. Not
Yeah,
being
they'd love
dove
getting
and having
ganked.
Oh yeah,
all
not
stuff.
getting dove. Oh my god, we gotta return. Do you remember that patch where I think they'd changed TP and they'd made turrets deal more damage, so dives were really hard. And for like that one patch, Kale was like giga meta, and like people were like kind of picking with Nasus, and then they nerfed the turrets and she just disappeared, never returned.
Yeah.
We'd just
Goodbye,
get that
Kale.
again, you know. Teams would just be like, we'd get Nasus back as the counter, would get all the 1v1 focus picks.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. All right, so before we end the show, I've decided to come up with my own last thing that we're going to do. We're going to put our money where our mouth is, boys, okay? We're going to predict who is in the MSI Final and what the scoreline is going to be.
Let me look at the bracket.
I mean, it's double elim.
Yeah, we don't know what the bracket's going to be like, so
It's basically you got to take a guess because
Yeah.
the double elim situation means that
Well,
it can
based-
basically just be anyone.
yeah, I
Based
just
on
I wasn't sure if it was
Let
going to
the
be like
LPL spy
T1
go
or
first.
Genji and Billy Billy are like on the opposite sides
Oh,
automatically, or
Yeah, if they have to be, because if they don't have to be on the opposite sides, it will be T1 Genji on one side of the bracket and BLG top esports the other, because that's how it always goes at international.
But I mean, it's double elim, so they can.
They will work out
Yeah,
anyway.
they can figure it out in the end. So you can get what you want regardless.
I feel like I mean, since it's just kind of a shot in the dark based on our expectations, obviously probably it's going to be Genji Billy Billy finals, and right now I'd be like 3-1 BLG. Sorry to be the doomer on that LCK podcast.
I'm gonna say
It's not very Snackerman of you.
Chovy is going to carry Genji to the win this time. I'm gonna take a risk because like every time like something happens and it doesn't go according to plan, like tier lists don't work and pick'ems don't work. Everything's like wrong all the time. So something weird is gonna happen. Genji are gonna be like, everybody's gonna be like, oh, memeing them, blah blah blah. They can't do it, and then all of a sudden they're just gonna like crush the tournament.
The back to back to back to back to back.
How many backs in a row?
Well, they didn't win Worlds, so like we kind of
Yeah.
skipped that one.
So I
MSI kind
think-
of skipped that, but
I'm gonna predict Genji over BLG 3-2.
1, go.
Okay,
Daniel.
well, I've read the script, so, assuming that they aren't hard force on the opposite side of the brackets, I'm going to say that Genji beat T1, knock them down in losers bracket. Genji then lose to BLG, and then T1 beat Genji in the lower bracket after beating top esports, right? They get the lower bracket run, and then they face BLG in the finals, where they lose 3-2 in T1 fashion.
I feel like I've seen that before.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Definitely seen that one before.
It's a
Okay.
believable story.
I think that the final is.
He's gonna
I
say
think it-
top esports. isn't
No, I'm not.
Snacker man?
No, I think it's going to be T1 versus TL. Umpty back at it
Oh my
again.
God.
Core JJ back at it again.
Well,
and
I don't have to
this
ask
is
who
going to
wins.
be
It's
the
not gonna be
time
FlyQuest?
where
Like-
NA is just going to win.
Yeah.
Because with that amount of anti-faker power that they have on that roster, they can do it.
I'm interested.
How
about all
they
the
get to
other
the
teams?
finals,
Yeah, I was
don't
about to
ask
say,
me.
I was
Don't
about
ask
to-
me how they
What
get
about
there.
the rest of
How
the
did
bracket?
everything else happen to that point?
But I actually do think that it is likely that T1 will make a deeper run because I think they benefit a lot off extra games and extra time spent in a tournament meta. So them playing through like play-ins and getting a few extra best of fives, even if it's not necessarily against the most difficult of opposition, it gives them momentum and it gives them extra game time. And I think that gets them at like as Gen G's making their way into the tournament, I feel like T1 are going to be warmed up and will start running a little bit more.
I feel like for me, T1 have shown a really good ability to adjust mid-tournament. Like something at Last Worlds, they even said like they kind of realized that drafts weren't working. They made adjustments. They brought
Yeah.
the carrier picks. that worked well. It was a meta where everyone was picking like engage supports. Renato was god tier because everyone was picking engage supports into it. And was like, oh my god, it loses. And then Carrier's like, oh no, we can just do this. But I think we've seen a trend generally where they're a great team at adapting in the middle of a tournament run. I think Gen G have struggled with that. And again, this is a bit of a different iteration of Gen G. But if they continue that trajectory, I think they will start strong. But I think the longer run, to me, based on what we've seen historically, would make sense for T1.
And with the fact that
buffs.
it's double elim as well, and that does give a little bit of an
First
extra
delay.
buffer and a bit of extra time for Gen G to play. So I'm kind of there with you. But I was going to say exactly the same thing as Brendan, so I had to come up with something different on the fly very quickly. And so
On the
Fly
fly quest?
on the fly, Papa?
How would Hanwha do in this tournament?
Oh, they'd lose. Peanut doesn't win internationals.
You know what? It really bothered me, like the way Hanwha got knocked out of playoffs. Because obviously, up against T1, they just kind of the second time round, it didn't look super convincing. But like that Gen G series, I mean, I've said it then, I'll say it now. Chovy just literally just decided to drag the corpses of his teammates over the line.
I mean, he basically did it against T1 too.
Yeah, it was just like...
The thing that disappoints me the most is that we won't have Delight and Viper, who are clearly our two best bottom lane players in the LCK.
I was saying, Delight and Viper up against Elkanon, that would have been such a hype matchup.
Oh, dude.
What about Lehenz's facilitation of Base's growth?
That's true, actually. Delight's never done that.
As far as we know.
Wait a second.
Hayes did it all on his own because he's the number 180 carry pick as well.
Well, it's like every episode is actually just going to be based on that particular All-Pro vote from now on. Like, the whole PogState is now devolved.
We'll never let it
What
go.
about
We're never
Chovy
gonna
versus
let go.
Showmaker, though? That was a good discussion as well. Where Showmaker won, right? And everybody on the internet was like, why didn't Chovy win?
When was this?
It's 2021, I think.
All right, like the year where Dom were pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. Just another one of those internet discussions
I mean,
that we
the
all
thing that-
love.
I like it when you're having an argument about two great players that both deserve it, you know? But I think that when it's the clear best
Like
AD
Lehens
carry
and Beryl.
not getting the first place, like that's crazy to me. Like, I voted Beryl in third place for support because I felt like there were two really good performing supports in the LCK, and the third place was a mess. You could have taken 5 different players.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't that great. I'm
Should've
doing it
been
again.
Pleta.
I'm doing it again. I think it's time for us to. I think it's time for us just to get ready for
How
some
would
more MSI.
Brion do in...
Would they be snackament here?
Challenge.
If you're wondering how Brion would do, they won the LCS. That's how Brion did.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's
True.
true. It's actually true.
It's true.
Yikes.
Oh,
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Yeah.
the spirit of Brown definitely won
Umpty is just
won the
built
LCS. He is. He's a god. I'm
Actually,
very much
think about
looking
wait.
forward to
You
it.
think of his trajectory because he finished summer beating Gen G, and then went straight
Yeah.
to NA and just.
All right, we
rode
need,
the high.
we need to get Daniel to bed. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we will see you next time for some more PogState. I hope you enjoy MSI, and we're very excited to get into summer immediately afterwards. See you soon. Bye-bye.